Hey everyone, Aaron here from MTGChallengers, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering deck tech. Today I'll be going over the ever-popular Mono Black Devotion for the beginning of Born of the Gods Standard. In terms of the cards, as well as the deck's overall theme and win conditions, it really hasn't changed much at all since Theros. It still largely relies on disruption, removal, and playing permanents that can be taken advantage of by Grey Merchant of Asphodel. The only major changes me and Cole made were to put in some of the great new removal that was just printed. So getting started, first we have 4 copies of Pack Rat. This card has really been seeing a lot of play since Innistrad rotated out, and for good reason. It's just nuts if you can get it going. It provides an outlet to get rid of dead cards in your hand, like excess lands, and it will become a win condition against many decks, mainly those that don't have access to cards like Supreme Verdict and Detention Sphere. And since the tokens are exact copies, they do accumulate devotion, and its synergy with Mutavault is not to be underestimated. Next up, we have 4 copies of Nightveil Specter. It's mainly just here for the very nice 3 devotion it provides, but it is an evasive body that can take cards away from your opponent and give you the ability to play them as well. Then I have 4 Desecration Demon, so pretty traditional there. Like Pack Rat, it's really been seeing a lot of play since rotation. Controls your opponent's board very well, and it can be a win condition if they run out of things to sacrifice. With things like Bramaz being printed recently, it'll probably be a little bit worse in this season of Standard, but I still feel that he's worth the 4 slots. Then I have the traditional single copy of Erebos, God of the Dead. Since this is a devotion-based deck, of course, I felt that I could throw one in and it would be decent. It does shut down any life gain, which is definitely nice. You, of course, don't want your opponent to be gaining back any life, and it can be a creature pretty easily. And it is also some card advantage, less efficient, that is, than Underworld Connections, in case I don't get those out there. Then I have the main win condition of the deck in the form of 4 copies of Grey Merchant of Asphodel. The card really should be self-explanatory. When it enters, each opponent loses life equal to your devotion to black, and you gain that much life. Since he counts for 2 on his own, it can be done for 6 or more pretty consistently, and the 4 toughness makes it a fine blocker against any aggressive strategies. So that's it for creatures. Now on to the other spells. Starting off, I have the traditional playset of Thoughtseize. It's just an outstanding disruption spell. It shouldn't require much explanation as to why I have it in here. I'm not playing any shock lands, and I will be gaining a lot of life off of the merchants, so the life loss will never really be an issue. Next I have 3 Bile Blight, one of the new cards from Born of the Gods. It's just really outstanding all around, especially against aggressive decks that rely on a lot of redundancy in the creatures that they play. You can get 2, 3, and 4 for 1s surprisingly often. It deals with Burning Tree Emissary God draws against mono green. It also wrecks any kind of weenie token strategies. It deals with Boros Reckoner really well, and it's great in the mirror matchup as well, as it can deal with your opponent's Pack Rats before they get out of control. I also added in another cards from Born of the Gods, which is Drown in Sorrow, 2 copies of it. One of Black's problems has been the lack of sweeper effects since Mutilate went out of Standard, and this one is pretty decent. -2/-2 is usually sufficient to wreck any kind of fast aggro starts. It will rarely kill my own creatures. The only one that's in range is Pack Rat, and even then that's provided that you haven't already made a lot of copies already to bring it over to toughness. And the scrying one is just the icing on the cake. Then I have the usual playset of Hero's Downfall. It's just simple, unbiased removal, and it just works. It might even be a little bit better this season of Standard, depending on how good Kiora turns out to be. Then I have some other permanents that help with Grey Merchant, and are also very good in their own right. 3 Underworld Connections provides some important card advantage in the slower matchups. It will get sided out a good bit of the time for more removal in the case of more aggressive decks, which I think are going to be a little bit more of a thing now. But it's a fine permanent that, again, helps with Grey Merchant. And finally, I have 2 Whip of Erebos, another permanent that helps with devotion. It can also gain a good deal of life, and the reanimation ability is particularly good with Pack Rat, since you can whip it back and make a copy of it before it gets exiled again. And of course, whipping back your merchants to hit for their end of the battlefield triggers all over again is just really, really nice. Then we come to the mana base, which is pretty simple. 25 lands consisting of 4 Mutavault, 2 Temple of Silence, 1 Temple of Malice, and 18 Swamps. Mutavault, especially in decks that can support it, is simply absurd, and all you need to do to realize that is play it in this deck with 4 Pack Rat. Then I have the Scry lands, 3 of them. I'm not splashing any other colors, these are just here for the Scry 1 function. Cole didn't have 3 of any one black Scry land, so he just threw in Temple of Malice that he opened, along with the 2 silences he already had on hand. It doesn't make any difference, and it's somewhat humorous anyway. So that's it for the main board. Let's take a look at the sideboard. First up, I have 3 Lifebane Zombie. Really good for additional disruption against green-white based aggressive and mid-range decks, and I really think the card will see a lot more sideboard play due to Brimaz. Then I have 3 Dark Betrayal. Black is still probably going to be the deck to beat, so it's nice to have a really cheap, efficient spell to kill their creatures in the mirror matchup. A playset of Devour Flesh is also really useful to get rid of hard-to-remove creatures like Blood Baron of Vizkopa and monstrous Fleecemane Lions. Then I have 1 Doomblade and 2 Ultimate Price. Just more efficient removal spells, relegated to the sideboard due to their restrictions. These are pretty obvious when they need to be sided in against other monocolored decks and or non-black ones. And finally, I have some additional copies of the new cards I put in, 1 more Bile Blight and 1 more Drown in Sorrow. These will mostly be sided in against the more aggressive decks where 2, 3, and 4-for-1s can give you the win. So that's it for this deck tech. Thank you all very much for watching. To see these decks in action, check out our gameplays, and also be sure to keep up with the other deck techs that we upload. Thanks for visiting, and if you like what you see, subscribe for more Magic the Gathering content.